Yes.
Uncle Doug.
Uncle Mark.
You know, there's all kinds of things out there, and some of them are shapes. And
Mark, is there a gas leak in your condo?
You did this to me. You did this to me last week or a couple of weeks ago. So I did it.
I'm like, don't say any of the following things, and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, exactly. I gave you guys literally nothing to go on this. So
there are in life, one may experience things such as flavors, sounds, shapes, lines, some diagonal, some that have a curve. And
with that, we're moving on.
You did great. You did just great.
Yeah. Uncle Dan, what sort of life experience do you have to talk about today?
Well, listen, what you're talking about, or
Are we
what you're
actually
trying to talk
recording?
about.
Don't tell me we're actually recording.
No, this is just a trial run.
Okay. Good.
What you're trying to talk about is symbols. Now, I'm not a guy who dwells too much on symbols. I do enjoy a good metaphor, of course.
Sure.
And I certainly understand the utility of things like branding or whatever.
Yeah.
But symbols in general, symbolism, I don't have much use for it. That's just not how my brain works. And the truth is that the more I read the Bible or other religious literature, the more I hate symbolism. For example, every now and then I'll read a passage that doesn't make sense to me, so I'll Google it. And fuck if I don't find page after page after page of expert interpretations and rabbinical pronouncements and conspiracy theories, all of which purporting to tell me what that particularly unclear passage actually means. What the donkey represents, what the dirt means, what the bricks are versus what the mortar is. It's all symbolic, you see.
Yeah.
You just have to interpret it correctly.
Right.
Well, fuck you! What the hell kind of God puts out a holy book that is so unclear in its meaning that his dopey monkey children have to fight over what it means for the next several thousand years?
If your story is more footnotes than story, that's a fail.
Why don't you just tell me what laws you'd like me to obey?
Right, exactly. Wouldn't it be quite obviously better if he had just said what he meant outright and saved everyone the heartache?
When your soul is on the line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't worry. This is only the most important thing you need to know ever. Right. I'm going to tell it to you in a mystery. No, I'm not okay with it. So anyway, today I'm going to talk about a symbol that has meant different things throughout the ages, or maybe a few symbols, but started as a religious symbol. Now, this whole thing was a rabbit hole that I went down after reading a stupid passage in the book of Numbers, chapter 21.
You can just say passage.
Right.
If you want to save time.
Yeah, that's not a bad point. The chapter starts, by the way, with Moses and his merry band of Israelites still wandering from place to place, and within the first 3 verses, they've been set upon by the Canaanite king of Arad, sworn to God that, quote, if you will deliver these people into our hands, we will totally destroy their cities.
Okay.
That's a quote from the Bible. And then they did just that. That's 3 verses. There is no comment made about any of this, good or bad. They just murdered every man, woman, and Canaanite child, burned their cities to the ground, and then went on a wandering. So anyway, that's a fun way to start a chapter, if you ask me.
Yeah,
3 times.
Strong start.
Yeah. 3 times the number of verses is given to the very next story. This one starts with, and you really won't believe this, guys, so brace yourself. The Israelites complaining. Remember back when I had to take 1,000 episodes to get through the Exodus because the record kept skipping and doing exactly the same story over and over and over? Mm-hmm. Well, this is 2 biblical books later, and they're still doing the same shit. They complain, this time about the food, presumably manna, and God smacks them with another hardship, this time in the form of venomous snakes. So the people cried out that they were sorry. And now will you please make these snakes go away, please?
I mean, I'm equally annoyed with the complaining, but I also kind of like, okay, all I have to eat is this crusty, sandy bread. And if I bitch about it, you're going to throw a poisonous snake at me.
Yeah.
Didn't we
Okay.
also conclude that manna was like there was bird droppings involved? Isn't that a thing
That's what we decided. It seems that was our logical conclusion. Absolutely.
That's our symbol of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but Doug, the problem is that, yes, it's valuable. It's worth complaining about if, like, you have shitty food and you're just wandering in the desert.
Yeah.
But they've been wandering in the desert with shitty food over and over again, and every time they complain, they get a plague of some sort, and then they don't ever learn.
Right.
And that's my objection. Anyway, so Moses told them, so Moses prayed to God. God said, "Okay, here's what you do. You make a snake and put it on a pole." So anybody who got snake bit and could look at that, and then they'd be healed, which Moses did out of bronze, which must have taken a while. And presumably assholes were getting bit left and right, waiting for this damned pole to be finished. So you'd think the Lord would just, make the snakes go away.
Well, we've established that this merry band of Jews have idol smelting capacity on full boil at all times. So making a bronze snake is like way less than a
good
calf.
at something. Yeah.
And plus, with a snake, all you got to do you take it and you roll it, and then you got yourself.
That's
a snake.
right.
Super easy. It's like the easiest thing to make.
According to the movie Bananas, there's a better way to get snake poison out of somebody. Uncle Mark, do you remember?
What?
Is it?
Suck out the poison.
Yes, indeed.
Suck out the poison. Yeah. So anyway, Woody Allen deep cuts aside.
Somebody somewhere is laughing, and it's probably me.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I read that bit, and I said, "Snake on a pole? I know that symbol.
Yeah.
That's on all the medical stuff, right? This must be the origin of that." And down the rabbit hole I went. What I found was weird and confusing and fascinating and eventually embarrassing for me about my stupid country. So first, I want to ask you fellas to describe what you remember, what you imagine when I ask you to describe the symbol of medicine.
What I imagine?
What do you see in your head when I say that?
Well, you're not going to like that I'm going to name it the Caduceus. And what I see is two snakes wrapped around, I think, a pole with a kind of vessel at the top, which I think is indicative of a mortar and pestle kind of thing.
Interesting.
I got the
Am I
double
wrong?
helix snakes around the pole. I forget what's up top, but I remember the double helix snakes.
Okay. So hold on to those images.
right.
I'll get to that in a minute. But I Googled snake on medical symbol, and the first thing I got was the Caduceus, or the Caduceus, which, well done, you, Mark. You get a star for the day.
Art school dropout, baby.
It's usually a staff with wings at the top and two snakes looping around it, double helix
Right,
style.
the wings. I forgot the wings, yes.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, that's it. That's the medical symbol, and I was right. That's the symbol I'm used to seeing as a reference to medicine. But that's not because that's what that symbol is supposed to reference. That's because Americans are idiots.
Oh,
We'll get to that.
hot take.
Yeah. But before we get to that, let's check in with the symbol that folks from other parts of the world might recognize as the medical symbol, which is a staff with one snake swirled around it and no wings. This is called the rod of Asclepius. Sorry. Asclepius, the son of Apollo, was the ancient Greek god of healing and medicine. He was the father of hygiene, that's the goddess of cleanliness. Iaso, the goddess of recuperation from illness. Excesso, the goddess of the healing process. Egli, I don't know how to say it. I'm nailing these. The goddess of good health. And Panacea, the goddess of universal remedy. So a cool dude who brought a lot of healing into the world. Like, that's kind of his whole gig. And a good guy to know, presumably. It's said that he began his learning his healing arts from Apollo, his papa, But his knowledge really took off when he started under the tutelage of Chiron, the wisest and justest centaur. What really set Asclepius apart as a healer, though, was when he established a relationship with a particularly useful snake. It seems that the ancient Greeks saw snakes a little differently than the ancient Hebrews. Far from being venomous death squiggles who'll trick you into eating the wrong fruit, the Greeks saw snakes as mystical wisdom noodles, knowledgeable in the arts of healing and resurrection. There are different versions of the story of how Asclepius became associated with a serpent. In one, he was commanded to bring a duke back to life. In his nervous contemplation, he was banging his staff on the ground and unwittingly killed a snake in the process.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sad.
Oh, yeah, sad.
Apparently by accidentally, quote-unquote, accidentally, repeatedly hitting it over the head. Later, he watched as another snake slithered up and placed an herb on the first snake's head, who then came back to life and slithered away. Asclepius ran out, got the same herb, put it on the dude's head, and shaboom! Snake remedies to the rescue. He's revived the dude.
Yeah.
Any word on what herb this is?
No.
Yeah, I'm sure Big Pharma has it locked up.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that if you put parsley on someone's head, suddenly...
Yeah.
Anyway, the other story is that Asclepius apparently did some kindness for a snake. I don't know what that was. Maybe he let the snake borrow his snowblower or helped him move. Anyway, whatever. The snake was so impressed that he cleaned Asclepius's ears out with his snaky tongue. Gross, but okay.
Okay.
And then taught him a bunch of awesome snake secrets about healing. You guys all remember that from Harry Potter, right?
Yes.
Anyway, either way, Asclepius became the best healer around, and his snake and stick combo became the symbol of that. I should mention that all of this is a much nicer origin story for the image of a serpent on a staff than the other theory, which is that it comes from the traditional treatment of dracunculiasis, or guinea worm disease.
Oh, God.
Which is a parasitic disease in which a person is infected by guinea worm larvae and lives a fine life for about a year until a horrifically painful blister forms on their legs, at which point the only thing to do is to coax the worm out by soaking the wound in water, which you are then very careful not to let get back into the groundwater, because that water induces the worm to release her young. And then, when you see this nasty nematode, you start winding her around a stick.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
And after a few days to a few weeks of gently pulling, being careful not to let her break, you'll finally have relieved yourself of that nastiness.
You know, I could have used a trigger warning about a minute and a half ago.
Yes, so could have a lot of our listeners.
Wow.
I apologize
Walked
for that.
away.
Wow.
I could have used a trigger warning when I saw the image of it.
Oh, my God.
Unrelated, yeah. Anyway, personally, I prefer the mythic version. They can get up to 30 inches long.
Okay, all right.
Welcome to Worm Talk on the How to
Worm
Heretic. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the the rod of Asclepius, a serpent on a stick.
Yeah.
But if that's the medical symbol, then what's the one that Uncle Mark described before?
I don't know.
Well, bitches, that's the Caduceus, which is the staff carried by Hermes, whom you may know is a totally different Greek god from Asclepius.
Yes.
He was actually half-brother to Apollo, making him Asclepius's uncle, so there's that.
Okay.
The Caduceus was a herald's staff, and it has many meanings depending on who you ask. One myth says that Tiresias was walking along and saw two snakes fucking. He killed the female one with his staff, but the male one got away. Tiresias immediately turned into a woman. He remained a woman until several years later when he found the male snake and killed him with his staff, thus, I guess, creating balance back in the universe, and he transitioned back into a man.
Okay.
I would love to see that written up in a medical journal because that's pretty interesting stuff.
Yes, indeed.
You know what I mean? That's very interesting. That you assume the sex of the snake you kill.
I mean, all that makes sense, as you would say.
Fair
So there you
warning,
go.
people.
That's
When you're
right.
killing snakes, be ready.
Well, I think it's only they have to be fucking for that to work.
Oh, okay.
But talk about a cheap way
Never
to
mind
do a
then.
transition, you guys. All you trans people, pay attention because going even the surgeons in India can't compete with the free.
It's a fast track. It's a fast
killing a
track.
fucking snake thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, another myth has Hermes himself come upon some snakes who are fighting. He separates them with his staff and thus engenders a peace between them. So it becomes a symbol of peacemaking. Hermes was also the god able to transverse the border between death and life. So, depending on who you believe, the two snake Caduceus is either a symbol of gender transition, which is cool. Get on that, trans community. That's an awesome
Do they
symbol.
use it? Does the trans community use that as a symbol?
Not that
That's
I'm
quite
not that I'm
interesting.
aware of, but I think they ought to because I think it's awesome. Other
Yeah.
than the fact that it's confusing now, and I'll get to that.
Yeah.
It could be a peace symbol. It can be a symbol of going between life and death, or most commonly throughout the ages, even though I haven't really been able to figure out why, except that Hermes was all about this. It is a symbol of commerce. So why, oh why, has that symbol come to mean medicine in the old U.S. of A?
I think you've answered your own question, Dan.
Right? Well, yeah, that's the problem. You'll be shocked to learn that it originates, the fault at least of this originates with our wise and brilliant military. Back in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they were looking for symbols for the military uniforms, etc. And one guy, and there's some dispute about which guy it is, so I'm not even going to mention the name, actually convinced the U.S. Army Corps of whatever. What is it?
Engineers, or you're talking about doctors?
No, it's the medical corps.
Yeah.
To adopt this winged double-snaked symbol as their symbol. Probably. Now, here's the thing. There are a lot of theories as to why. Some of them include that they were... One insists that this was meant to be a symbol of commerce, of mercantilism, and therefore was a symbol of not being on one side or the other of a conflict, and therefore don't attack us.
That's a stretch.
That's a stretch and a half. I think
Yeah.
somebody just saw it, thought it looked cooler than the one snake on a stick, and just fought for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's symmetrical. So it looked better as a brass button on your collar, probably.
100%. And the wings look pretty cool, and I think it just looked better.
Yeah.
And these ding-dongs adopted it.
Looks like a
They
military
fought it
thing.
for a
Yeah.
while because it was run by doctors for so long, and they all knew what the symbolism meant. And then finally, one doofus comes along, gets convinced, and it's there forever. And now the United States of America is littered with it. Strangely, and I saw this listed in a few different places. There was a study that was done, and a high percentage of medical practitioners use the rod of Asclepius as their symbol, but also a majority of medical corporations in the United States use the Caduceus as their symbol, which to me is perfect because in this country,
You want healthcare?
medicine is a business.
Yep.
And it is all about making money off of the suffering of others. So maybe it's not the wrong symbol after all in these United States. It's just a sad, sad symbol.
So
That's interesting. Yeah.
I always thought it was the Moses story. That's what I always assumed.
I was told that from a young age, I think. But I was also told that this double snake with the wings thing was the thing. Turns out, no. This goes back to the Greeks. Now, it's possible, this is interesting, that the writing of Moses's staff with the snake, it does predate the Greek one.
Oh.
It's possible that that predates. However, it's likely that other symbols of snakes on staffs predate Moses. The Egyptians had one. The Indians have had symbols like that. So, or in terms of origin, it's possible that there's a common ancestor,
Right.
sort of thing. But that's hard to parse out. But the medical one is definitely the Greek one. So there you go. If you see the two snakes with the wings, you know that
it ain't free.
It ain't. That's right. It's going to cost
free.
you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for Snake Takes.
It's been Snake Takes with Uncle Dan.
Yeah. Look for more Snake Takes every week.
For the Parasite Power Hour.
That's right.
And worm
It's
words.
nematodes for to horrify Uncle Doug.
All right.
Well, we'll do it again next week.
That's fascinating. Medicare for all. Okay. Let's move on.
Damn straight.